Sherlock Holmes The Awakened was one of developer Frogware's earlier games based on Arthur Conan Doyle's famous consulting detective. It first released in 2007, with an updated version releasing in the year after. It has Holmes and his friend and biographer Dr. John Watson investigating a number of mysterious disappearances which are linked to a cult who worship an ancient god, the legendary Cthulhu, and a full remake of this game has now been made available on the Switch with a reworked story, new voice acting and enhanced level design. Is it worth investigating, or should you stay at home at Baker Street? Well, thank you to the publishing team for the review code, and now let's find out.
The bile of madness rises in our throats.
The story begins with an associate of Watson's reporting that one of his servants has gone missing. Investigations into this lead Holmes and Watson to a number of locations from London to Switzerland and New Orleans on the trail of a host of kidnappings when it starts to become apparent that there may be something quite horrific and potentially supernatural behind it all, involving an ancient god named Cthulhu. I really enjoyed the story and this version of Holmes, who seemed to open up and show his empathetic side a bit more. He still shows many of the traits associated with the character, but the challenges he faces in this particular adventure are so at odds with his belief that there is nothing that cannot be explained with logic and reasoning that it almost seems to break him at times. For the first time ever, he is genuinely scared and insanity does start to creep in places. The difference in source material between Arthur Conan Doyle's characters and H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu lore certainly makes for an interesting juxtaposition. So in terms of gameplay, you will control Holmes and Watson at times from a third-person perspective. Each chapter will be set in a particular location with a number of sub-locations that can be found and visited as part of your investigation. You can fast travel to these via your map once you have unlocked them. Generally, on entering a new area there will be a crime scene to examine with many areas of interest to interact with. This will either lead you to being taken to another screen where there are a certain number of key pieces of evidence to find, resulting in a note being added to your evidence page, or you picking up an item and likewise this being added to that screen. Evidence is handled slightly differently in this Sherlock Holmes game to the few that I've played before, which chronologically came out after this game originally, and in this one you need to pin a piece of evidence which will then appear on the main screen in order to further investigate it, such as asking bystanders for information. Whilst this method is perfectly functional, it leads to times where certain items will only be highlighted if you've pinned a related piece of evidence first. Sometimes you'll be told what you need to find, but because you didn't pin a particular piece of evidence, you could wander around aimlessly for a while with the items not being highlighted. You will get used to it, but the mechanic just seems a little superfluous in all honesty. You'll also interview witnesses, and there are times when you'll build a profile of a character or confront them on an aspect of their story, but this isn't as fleshed out as it was in some of the games that followed it. Bearing in mind this is a remake of the 2008 game, it would have been nice to have seen them build on the foundations of some of the later Sherlock Holmes games, rather than strip it back as they seem to have done here. Finding clues will enable Holmes to use his imagination to begin to recreate exactly what might have happened at each crime scene. Each stage of a crime will be visible to Holmes as he begins his deductions, and finding all evidence will open up more options in terms of exactly how things transpired at each stage. Once you are happy with your deduction, you can validate it to move the story along. There's no real consequence for getting it wrong, you'll just be shown which stage is incorrect, with the only real punishment being earning fewer investigation points. These accumulate over time, and meeting a threshold will unlock a bonus such as a piece of artwork or a new costume for the characters to wear. As you begin to collect information, you'll need to piece it together to ascertain motives, and you do this via your mind palace. Clues are split into 3 categories here, being documents, observations and items, and you'll need to pull together the most relevant pieces from your stash to answer a question or deduce a motive, enabling Holmes and Watson to follow a new lead. You'll also come across areas which feed into the Lovecraftian theme, with Holmes stuck within hallucinations. These areas have a stronger puzzle solving element to them, but to be honest they were some of the weaker aspects of the game. Onto controls then, and moving is assigned to the left stick and the camera to the right. Your evidence is brought up by pressing the plus button, with presses of L and R bringing up other things such as your map and your mind palace. They are fine for the most part, but there are a couple of issues, such as pressing L, which is meant to scan an environment for things you can interact with, only working half the time, and the movement when surveying a close-up scene for evidence being a little bit awkward. Gameplay works well from an investigative sense, and the story most certainly kept me interested. A few of the mechanics don't work as well, but on the whole, gameplay including story gets 16 out of 20. Controls do the job, but there are a few niggles here and there, and they get 15 out of 20. In terms of the visuals, Sherlock Holmes The Awakened has been built from the ground up in the Unreal Engine since that 2008 release. The settings are detailed and there's a good amount of variety between chapters, and I do feel the world built is a big asset to the game. However, unfortunately there are a number of negatives for this particular section. Character models do not fare as well, with the bane of minigame's existence, human hair, once again looking incredibly awkward. Aside from this, there are performance issues with some stuttering, particularly noticeable when turning the camera suddenly, and I also had 3 crashes during my time with the game. Thankfully there is an autosave function which kicks in pretty often, but that doesn't make it any less disappointing. Audio wise, I'm happy to say that the game gets the most important aspects right, in that both Holmes and Watson's voice actors do a great job. There is a good chemistry between the two characters, and there are moments of humour, tension and even a few poignant scenes, and the quality stays high throughout.
Miss, what if I told you that you are in the family way?
No, really? Oh, thank you, sir. How would I, a simple woman, have ever known without your help? You must be a doctor.
In a manner of speaking.
He's not. He merely has the ego of one.
Some of the secondary characters do not fare quite as well, and there was a strange glitch at one point where spoken sentences would cut off before the actor had finished speaking, but as a package, this area hits more often than it misses. Visuals in terms of the world built do a good job, but character models don't fare as well, and the performance issues encountered are disappointing. Unfortunately, they get just 10 out of 20. Audio is strong, especially with the voice acting of the 2 lead characters, and this gets 16 out of 20. Sherlock Holmes The Awakened costs £39.99 and regional equivalents are on your screen now. It took me around 10 hours to finish the game, and there is some replayability in terms of the unlockables I mentioned when meeting certain thresholds with your investigation points. Now, I never played the 2008 original, so I cannot attest to how different this version is or what exactly has been changed, but I will say that even as a remake, this does feel overpriced, and when you consider the issues mentioned in the previous section, this definitely exacerbates the problem. It's a game worth playing, and I really cannot emphasise how much I enjoyed the story, but the price does make it hard to fully recommend, and value gets 12 out of 20. To conclude, sometimes a review score does not reflect just how much you've enjoyed playing a game, and this is one of those cases. I would most certainly recommend this to fans of Sherlock Holmes or adventure games in general, as the story is great and the journey to get to the end is a lot of fun. However, it would come with a huge caveat that you would need to do so whilst accepting a disappointing lack of polish and a few technical issues, as well as a price that is just too high, especially when factoring in the aforementioned issues. Probably one to wait for a sale on, but at that point I would definitely say it's a case worth tackling.
Yes,
Shut your dirty little mouth, Gerda. You've said enough already. She won't speak no more. Now it's only high.
Sherlock Holmes The Awakened gets a SwitchUp score of 69%. Thank you everybody for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do remember to leave a like if you did. Is this a game you've picked up, or will you be doing so? Please do let us know in the comment section below. Don't forget, if you are looking for eShop credit, you can do so via our website switchup.gg. We are in the process of putting a loyalty card system in place and hope to get that finalised soon. Hopefully this will give back a bit to people that do choose to get their credit this way, because it really does help the channel out and is very much appreciated. There's also a link down there to Play Asia if you're looking to import any games. Use the link in the description, use the code stated, and you can get yourself 5% off of an order from there. A big thank you to our patrons and our channel members, of course, for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.